WNST shirt that I'm wearing. This is the Chicken Palooza shirt that ends on the 31st of August. I'm going to be reminding everybody about Royal Farms real fresh, real fast over the next week. My wife and I might be doing the chicken dance out on the web as well. We have been doing these community and charity segments. Well, I've been doing them for 27 years, 20 years here at WNST. But going into the football season, they're all brought to you by Cole Roofing and my dear friend Bill Cole and Pfister Energy. And I love telling stories about things going on around town and events. This one is very, very near and dear to me. It is Stanstock. I want to welcome Mike Miller in, who is a retired employee, all-around good guy, organizer, production manager for Stanstock. Stanstock is coming up on September the 8th and 9th. It's on my side of town over on the east side of Riverwatch. You have to pass about 5 WNST sponsors on the way down there, from Al's Seafood down past Pizza John's. But please try to make an effort. I know the Ravens open on the 9th. I will be there on the 8th. I'm probably going to stop at Pizza John's, get some pizza on the way, probably bring some shrimp home for some good luck shrimp and grits on the 9th. Mike, Stan Gibson has been my friend as long as I've been alive. His parents and my parents were best friends, all now deceased from Bank Street. And Stan has had a spinal condition pretty much as long as I've known. When I was a boy, I remember Stan being healthy. And I want to welcome you on, first off, on behalf of our friends at Cole Roofing, who sponsor all of our community and charity series. But I'm probably going to be a little loquacious on this one because this one is sort of near and dear to me, my friend.
Well, thank you, Nestor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for Stan and the hardworking crew to volunteer for Stanstock.
And you say speak for Stan. Stan is, if folks could get a piece of, where O.J. Bergantz is on his journey in life, Stan is in a similar sort of circumstance in communicating, in how he communicates. So Stan can't do radio with us right now, but Stan is still very vibrant, alive on the web there, and watching right now live on Facebook Live and YouTube. But give everybody Stan's story, as you know, because I've known him longer, but you know him through Stanstock and what this event has become, which has become its own little Woodstock here in Baltimore.
Absolutely. Stan's been very creative. It all started in 2012 when he created this Baltimore Bands from the 70s, 80s, 90s Facebook page, and it's grown into this tremendous, wonderful music festival every year for 100% contributions to the Cole Van Horn Trust Fund for Children's Cancer Research and the Catch a Lift Fund for Disabled Veterans.
Wow. Tell me about those organizations that you're benefiting, because that really is what this is about. And I'm going to get into Stan's story. I'm going to tell a story about my parents and Stan's parents and being at Stan's brother's wedding and knowing his family and knowing everybody in the family and a very, very special relationship I have with his parents. But for this event and for how it's happened, this is the most organic thing this side of maybe the polar bear plunge, right? Things that we've seen happen in our community that people have really gotten behind, and it's now become a 2-day festival. The amount of bands, and I'm going to go through all the bands, and it's not any one kind of music, right? I mean, it's truly a love of all kinds of music throughout all of our lifetime as I turn 50 next month.
Absolutely. We kind of mix up the genres, funk, soul, jazz, and bands that cover rock and roll from the 50s on up till today.
Well, I tell you what, first off, I got to give a shout out to my boy Smitty, Eddie Frankovic, who covers the Caps for us. His buddy Smitty, his band is playing. They are called Foreplay, doing classic rock like the Boston song Foreplay as well. Hectic Red, let's see, Mark Bray, Midnight Run, New Virtue, Party of 10, Paul Soroka, the Radio Pilots, the Route 66 Band, Silver Tongue, Spellbound, Tommy Van, bringing it from Hartford and Bel Air Road. Tony Shudo, Trilogy, let's see here, August, the Black Light Orchestra, Bottle of Blues, Core, Cream Circus. That's 2 different magazines put together. I can't wait to see them. Let's see here. Dying Breed, Eclipse. Gary and the Groove. I think I hit them all, and if I haven't, the Seagull. By the way, you guys had to go down to the Seagull to get this done, right? I mean, we're going into the way, way back machine when we're having an event over at the Riverwatch, which is on sort of hallowed ground for anybody that ever saw music in the 70s and the 80s over at the Seagull, right?
Oh, absolutely. The owners of the Riverwatch, Mark and Tracy Sullivan, approached us about having it there at the Riverwatch in Essex this year. And, of course, the history there goes back the 70s and 80s. It was one of the big rock joints of the decade. And we have partnering this year with Dan Grauer, who used to run the Seagull Inn reunions and still does. And he's got 5 p.m. to midnight on the inside stage of bands that rocked the Seagull back then are reuniting, Rob Fahey, Scott McGinn of Face Dancer, Charlie Higgs, Kenny Carter, Stagger Wynn, John West of Voices, and Orange Wedge reunion. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I saw Rob Fahey's name on here, and I didn't give him some love. He's another dear friend of mine as well. Man, you're mentioning some names there and bringing people back. And, Stan putting this thing together, because Stan, speak for Stan for a moment and how this thing happened and why it happened, and to Stan's current affliction and what you guys are trying to do for this charity. Because, and first of all, I hope we get great weather. It's Ravens kickoff weekend. The Ravens game will be on down there as well on Sunday. I'm going to be down there on Saturday afternoon bringing on some bands as well. I hope everybody can make it. Stanstock.org is the way to find that. But I don't know. I really don't know. So I hope whatever you can do to educate me on the elevator speech. I just know it's popped up on Facebook. I know I've known Stan forever. I know Facebook brings people together. I haven't been in a room with Stan in many, many years because he's lived at the beach for a period of time. His father passed right before my mother passed last year, and all sorts of things have happened. But I don't know the story, so bring it to me.
Well, I mentioned earlier that in 2012, Stan, local musician and great humanitarian, created this Facebook page for the Baltimore bands of the 70s, 80s, and 90s folks. He brought us together, musicians, fans, to discuss and reminisce about the golden days of live music in the Baltimore area.
So some of you knew each other, right? And you didn't know Stan, though. Stan just was sort of the glue that created a page that everyone came to, and it became its own community, correct?
Absolutely. It's been a great blessing for somebody like me who's retired and looking for something to do. Kids are grown,
as far as putting this thing together, a bunch of folks came to me the night I was giving the Free the Bird shirts away over at Costas, and they said, can you donate some stuff? I'm sure, man. I give you some Purple Rains. I give you some Free the Bird shirts, whatever I got laying around, certainly. And I know this has been truly like an Amish village, right? Like a barn raising. Everyone has contributed. I've seen all the pictures up of all sorts of raffle items and charity auction items, and everybody's doing stuff, and Catch a Lift Fund and Nicole Van Horn Foundation, and all of these names involved in what you guys are doing. I know it all comes together over 2 days, but it's a labor of love year-round for a lot of you.
Yeah, I've actually started in March, but the core unit plus volunteers have been going at it before I came in as a production manager. So yeah, it's a year-round occasion, and people work hard. I tell you, the camaraderie is very welcome.
Tell you what, man, Orange Wedge getting back together. I haven't heard that in 30 years. And by the way, Brillhart's involved in this thing. You got Stash coming over there, right? I think everybody in the rock and roll space, this has become a little bit of a beacon of light where people do get, it's a musicians reunion kind of, sort of, right?
Oh, yeah, it's a big family reunion now. And fans actually in the past would just go see people. Now they interact with the band members and all on the Facebook page. So it's taking it far beyond what it used to be.
All right, Stanstock's going to be at the Riverwatch. Can I tell you a couple Stan stories? Because I think when we got on the phone, you didn't even know that I knew Stan as a kid, right?
No, I know he's from Colgate, and he talks a lot about his past, but I'm not from there, so I'm not familiar.
All right, so let me tell you a story. So Stan Gibson grew up on Bank Street as I grew up on Bank Street. I grew up in the 7900 block. He grew up in the 7800 block. His parents and my parents were best friends, neighbors, literally, who knew each other from the neighborhood. And Mr. Sam, his dad, went to the track. He worked at the steel plant in our neighborhood. My dad worked at Bethlehem Steel, and he worked at Stainless Steel down in the Colgate area, Colgate East Point area. And we spent my parents lost their son in 1969 to a drowning, and I have the pictures of the Gibsons consoling my parents when they lost their son. And I was a replacement child that came into their life in 1969 as an adopted son of a friend of their family. And the Gibsons, their house was the place I spent every Thanksgiving and every Christmas of my childhood. I didn't have a lot of family. I had some Venezuelan family. I came from really a broken family that I came from in Dundalk. And my parents adopted me and brought me in, the people that, my mom that passed last year, the people you know as my parents. And their best friends in the world were Stan's parents. And we would go to their home, and because of their Polish heritage, my father was from Scranton, Pennsylvania, was of Irish heritage. My mom was from the deep South in South Carolina, in Abbeville, South Carolina. So, a lot of the cooking that comes along with holidays, and we've debated this here for a long time. We have had a lot of fun over the years with whether your family had sauerkraut on Thanksgiving or Christmas or not. I've had 30 years on radio a debate about that. So his family was the family that had kielbasa and sauerkraut, and to this day, there is never a Christmas or a Thanksgiving where we don't have kielbasa and sauerkraut from Ostrowski's going on in my household. But I married a Polish girl, so my wife takes it to her family. So there's never a Thanksgiving or Christmas where I don't think of the Gibson family. But I got a story specifically about Stan and music and radio that I've never told. And I want to tell you this story because I told my wife, and we've been married 15 years, and she didn't know it. I got to get a drink of coffee out of my cold roofing cup. If you just joined us, I'm telling old war stories here, and if I can get a drink of water to clear my throat, I would tell you, actually, that's coffee. That's Rofo. Real fresh, real fast in that cup. That's Kona Blend. Cold Roofing is sponsoring these charity and community series things that I do. And I'm doing them every Thursday. And if you have a charity, if you have a community organization like Stanstock or stanstock.org, and you want your story told, just jump into me, nasty at WNST.net. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Snapchat. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook Live. And I'm on our YouTube WNSTV channel. Throw me a note. If you've got an event coming up over the next year, I'll slot you in, and I'd be happy to tell your story. It won't be as good as this story, because I've known Stan since 71, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So do you know about Stan's musician background? Mike, can you tell everybody about Stan the musician a little bit?
Well, I understand he's the horn man, saxophone, and he's seen pictures of his old bands. I don't know the members, but I understand that they were rocking. They did a lot of neighborhood things, and had the people partying all the time. So.
My neighborhood had a lot of musicians, I remember when I was a little boy, in 1971, 72, I was born in 68. I turned 50 next month. And my neighbor had a backyard that was huge out on Eastern Avenue. The Billius family, and there was another family next door. And I distinctly remember as a child hearing like the window being open where our bathroom in the summer, and I heard bam, 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 but they didn't know any of the rest of the song. So it was just Smoke on the Water and Deep Purple, and Stan was a part of that. Stan was a part of the jams that went on. We had a guy that lived on Bank Street on the other side. His name was Bunny. And his bands played all night, and he had one of those cool Uncle Rico vans. And he had all his band equipment and the drums and stuff in there. And on the corner, we had a musician that lived on the next side of the other side of the block. And those bands played all night, man. Whether in those days, I guess it was the Marble Bar. It was, the circuit with what was the Club Venus, right? I mean, these were the clubs back in the 70s. I was too young. I was a kid. I was a boy. But these guys would come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. We were out playing football in the afternoon, especially in the summer. They would come out and play quarterback because their bands played all night and they slept till noon, That was the life they led back in the 70s, the musician life that you're familiar with. So let me tell my Stan story. So I want to say it was 77 or 78, and I could date it by when the Earth, Wind, and Fire song Serpentine Fire actually came out. So I'm Googling that as I go through this because it plays a part in my life, in my career. It's probably one of my favorite stories that I will ever tell that I've never told, literally in 27 years. And I've saved it for today. So here it is. I'm a young boy. I'm at the Gibson's house a block away. The house is filled with other children and sort of grown up. Stan was sort of a grown up. I guess he was in his 20s or whatever at the time. And it was Thanksgiving night, and his buddy was spinning music at the old WEBB, which played black funk, Brothers Johnson, Ohio Players, Earth, Wind, and Fire, the bands of that era in the mid, probably Jackson 5 at that point, in the mid-'70s, probably Teddy Pendergrass, probably Barry White, that music of that era. And this is AM radio before FM really kind of settled in 78, 79, 80, when the era changed a little bit. And he wanted to take his friend, who was a DJ, a plate of Thanksgiving food. And ask my parents if and I'm like, he said to me, do you want to go to the radio station? And I'm like a 9, 10-year-old kid who loved music. I loved disco music. I loved rock music. I loved Aerosmith and Walk This Way. I loved Ted Nugent and Cat Scratch Fever. I loved Kiss. My cousin Nelson introduced me to Alice Cooper and to Cher and all this music, right? Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. My parents listened to country music, and my mom listened to Bobby Vinton and Engelbert Humperdinck. And so my Venezuelan family listened to merengue and had Venezuelan music all night long, playing penny poker and drinking whiskey shots all night, wiki and rum. So anyway, I get in the car with Stan to deliver a plate of food to his friend. I believe his name was Curtis Anderson, as I believe it. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was spinning tunes in a studio off of North Avenue near where Sears used to be and where the courthouse is, and behind what Dunbar people would remember as the Poet House. It was to the north side of North Avenue. We're talking about a very challenged neighborhood even in 1978, but in a row house in that neighborhood was where WEBB's studio was. And at 7 o'clock on Thanksgiving night, we jumped in the car and took a plate of food over. And I'll never forget, it was the first radio station I ever walked into. And I'm now a guy who's owned a radio station, an AM radio station. I actually broadcast on that signal in my career in the 90s at 1360. And it was the first radio station I ever walked into, Mike. And I walked in there with Stan Gibson, and I'll never forget meeting this gentle African-American deep voice. He's got Curtis Anderson on WEBB. And he had the plate of food, and he was thanking me, and he asked me what my name was and said my name on the radio. And he talked about how good the mashed potatoes were and the kielbasa and stuff. I mean, we had prepared him a gigantic plate of cranberry stuffing, all the stuff that you would find on the Gibson family Thanksgiving. And the first time I ever walked into a radio station was because of Stan Gibson. And I've never told that. I haven't thought of that story in 20 years. And I remember that story at some point when when his father passed. It's kind of amazing that it all comes full circle, that I wind up being a AM radio disc jockey guy. Nobody brings me food on Thanksgiving, I must say, but I didn't have friends as good as Stan Gibson, apparently. Stanstock is September the 8th and 9th. I'm going to be there on the 8th. How many bands and how do you fit this many bands onto a stage?
Well, we have 33 bands. We have 2 stages, inside and out.
Okay, all right. So that answers half the question.
We, like I said, we have stage crew moving equipment in and out. We rent sound systems and things like that, back lines. So it's a pretty complex operation.
I was going to say, when I remember Bill Graham being very, very perplexed at Live Aid. about how to get so many bands on and off the stage. You know, let's move this group out. Let's move this drum kit in. This band has keyboards. We got to move those. I mean, this is what you guys do for a living. And I noticed, like, at the new facilities now, like at Merriweather, they have the front and back of stage, right? Like, they build the next band, and they literally hit a button and the stage spins. they didn't have that at the Seagull, I know that for sure. And they don't have that at Riverwatch right now. But getting the bands on and off, and there's going to be like a total all-star jam thing going on too, right?
Yeah, that's part of the Seagull M reunion. At around midnight, a lot of artists that were playing earlier will come together for a big farewell jam, and there may be a surprise or two, according to Dan Grauer.
Springsteen?
I wish.
Mike Miller's here. Stanstock.org, the way to find them. They're on Facebook. They're out on the social web. Stan Gibson has been my friend for, all of my life pretty much. He is the Stan of the Stanstock. This is put together with musicians on Facebook and social media. Apparently, it's a big deal, Mike, and they've now invited me and asked me to come and muddy it up down there in Middle River. So I'm going to be down there early in the day on Saturday. Everybody knows Pizza John's and Al Seafood, our great sponsors, and all of these charity events that we do and all the charity segments brought to you by our friends at Cole Roofing. And, of course, my pal Billy Cole joins us once a week to argue and complain, and there's plenty to complain about with sports. But this thing is tied in with the Ravens opener, right? Like, when the Ravens are playing at 1 o'clock on Sunday, you still got rock and roll going on. So for those not headed down to the game, they can watch the game and jam out on Sunday and do a good turn for Stanstock, right?
Absolutely, yes. I'll be watching too.
Mike, I appreciate the time, appreciate the visit, appreciate to be able to tell some Stan Gibson stories. Stan, I love you, appreciate you. Send me a note, send me a picture. I'm going to send you, you know what I'm going to do to Stan? I'm going to send him a Get Nasty shirt to wear for me. I'm going to send him a Chicken Palooza shirt from Rofo as well. I don't know if he's small, medium, or large. You have to send me a note on that. I have donated a bunch of stuff as well. Anybody that wants to donate some cool stuff to Stanstock, throw me a note. I'll get you in touch with Stan. I'll get you in touch with Mike and all the good folks that are doing a great turn. So many volunteers involved with Stanstock. Sheila's been hitting me on email as well, so big shout out to Sheila, Tracy, everybody down at the Riverwatch. I hope we get 72 blissful degrees under a sun-drenched but a little bit of cloud afternoon for the indoor-outdoor festivities. And I hope by the end of Stanstock on the 9th, the Ravens are 1-0 and beat the snot out of the Buffalo Bills as well. Mike, a pleasure to know you. Bring all the musicians together. Put a live cam down there. We'll broadcast the thing on Facebook Live the way Buffett broadcasts his live shows. We'll have a Shovels the Party. We'll try to get as many folks down there as we can to the Riverwatch on the 8th and the 9th for Stanstock.
Thank you very much, Nestor. Appreciate the opportunity.
A man, a few words. Mike Miller joining us here, Stanstock.org. And I'm appreciative of being able to tell the story of the first time I ever walked into a radio station and met a real DJ who was nice to me and put me on the radio and ate those mashed potatoes. And so many bands, so many musicians, so many DJs. Brillhart's coming over, Stash. So cheers to all of them. I toast all of you from my Chicken Palooza shirt in my Cole Roofing mug for all that we do around here for community and charity. Every Thursday morning, I'm putting these segments together. I'll tell your story. Toss me a note. Simple as that. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. As Mr. Angelos once said, I'm a very available individual. I am Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.